In this video tutorial, I will show you how the first logging into NetEdit works and what to expect from it. And also I'll give you a tour of the whole interface, all the options, etc., giving you some details into some of those options. So that's the plan for this tutorial. This is part of a larger tutorial series on NetEdit 1.1. Again, I'll show you the first login and we'll give you a tour of the whole NetEdit interface. Hi, in this tutorial we'll go through the first login into Aruba NetEdit 1.1 and we'll take a short tour around the whole NetEdit interface. We'll visit the different pages and we will see the different options we have, and that will give us a first impression of the whole NetEdit environment. So let's start by logging in. The default user is admin, and this user has no password. And remember, when you created the VM, when you deployed the VM and did the first configuration through the NetEdit console, you used a user called NEadmin. That account and these account, the admin account that you are going to be using here, are different. So even when you assign the password to any admin, the admin user here still has no password. So let's log in and see what happens. Of course, we are prompted to enter a new password. So there's nothing in the old password to enter, and we will enter a new one. There you are, very simple. So we say OK, and we are logging in. The page that you find when you first log in is called Overview, but internally we call it the main dashboard. In this dashboard you will find different tiles, and later in other tutorials I will show you how to tailor all of this. Right now there's not much to see here. At the top menu you will find several options. The first one is on the left. You see the first icon here with the three short lines. That one allows you to expand the left-hand menu, and you will see later while we navigate here that the left-hand menu is where you jump from one page to the other. Then of course you have our logo, the name of the page, and on the right side you have the name of the user that is logged in at this moment. And if you click at user, from here you can log out, and then you have this question mark, which obviously is the help menu, and here you can go to documentation. This is very nice, so let's get there once, and then in other tutorials as we go from one topic to the other, in those or for those topics that it's relevant, I'm gonna take you back to the documentation and show you where to find the different pieces of information that you might be looking for. So if I click here, it opens a new page, and as you can see here on the left side you have all the table of contents, and you have a full-blown manual for every single feature inside NetEdit. So it is nice to have it here, so you don't have to be looking out for the manuals. Everything is here except for the installation, but if you are at this point, you've already installed the product. So let's go back to our NetEdit interface, and then in the help menu you will find also this about button, which is obvious. It says that it's unlicensed right now because this is a test deployment, so I'll get to licensing later in another tutorial. Again, here, this button here called upgrade is new. The rest of the NetEdit interface is very similar to the 1.0 interface, but we didn't have an upgrade button. This button allows you to upgrade NetEdit itself. So from 1.1 on, you will be able to upgrade your NetEdit server just clicking at this button and bringing in the new or the upgrade files. So that is pretty useful. If you have NetEdit 1.0 at this point and you want to upgrade to 1.1, look at the release notes of NetEdit 1.1 and you'll find all the instructions on how to upgrade the software using the console. But after you have NetEdit 1.1, any following update will be done through the web user interface. So that procedure should be used only once at the maximum if you already have NetEdit 1.0. And finally, here on the right, top right, you have this menu or this button that opens a menu, and this is where you manage your tiles. Right now, I'm only showing you, and in the future, in other tutorials, I'll show you how to manipulate this, how to create new tiles, how to enable or disable the tiles, etc. One thing that you will find in many places in the interface is this pair of plus and minus buttons. Plus is obviously used to, in this context, to add another tile, and the minus would be used to delete one. So for example, if I select this one and I click on minus, this cannot, in particular, cannot be deleted because it's one of the default tiles. If you don't want to see it in the dashboard, you just disable it from here with this button. So that's the overview. This is your main dashboard. It's pretty useful. As you can see, you have how many unreachable devices you have, and then you have the devices that have a different startup and running config. In other words, those devices in which you have not saved your running config. New devices, device configuration policy violations. We'll get back to this. But this is part of one of the most important features in NetEdit, which is the validation process. So we'll show you that this is one of the 4 validation types called conformance validation, and you will see those devices that do not comply with the conformance rules. And then the devices here, you have an example of devices running firmware version 10.02, but in the future, and I'll show you in another tutorial how to do the same for different software versions. So this is all configurable, and the next step is to go to devices, and when we get into the device management tutorial, I'll show you how to get your devices here. There's a process called importation, and you will be importing the devices into NetEdit. One important thing here that is also common, as we saw first in the dashboard, those for the tile menu, the plus and minus sign. When you have more than those 2 options, you'll see this action menu on the top right, and here you see all the actions that you can take in this context. The next page or context is plans. A plan is an important concept within NetEdit. It's particular of NetEdit. It could also be called a project. And you can think of a plan as a unit of change. So suppose that you have your switches that are running and you want to make a change. So you make a change to the configuration file through NetEdit, you deploy the new configuration, and you see that everything is running the way you want, so you commit that configuration. All of that process is done via something called a plan. So the concept of a plan is that all the operations that you make on the different devices are part of a plan. So each operation will be done by creating a plan, preparing the plan, deploying the plan, and if necessary, committing the plan. You will also see that there are different types of plans. There's from the plans that are created by you in NetEdit, you will find two types. One of them is the plan that you will use to change configurations. And there's another type of plan that you will use to make firmware changes. So if you want to upload a new firmware to your devices, you know that you can do that also with NetEdit, because you can deploy the same software image to many devices at once. And if you want, which might not be the best practice, you can at the same time or right after the new image is copied, you can reboot your devices. So those are the two types of plans that you create in NetEdit. But there's another type of plan, and I'll show you later when we get to the devices how all of this is documented. But suppose that you make a change outside of NetEdit. Suppose that you go and you make a quick configuration change in the console for something very simple, and you make a small change, you save the config, but you do that on the CLI, or you use Ansible to apply a change to many devices at once, or use the REST API to make a change, etc. So all of those changes that are made outside of NetEdit, you will see that within 5 minutes, NetEdit discovers those changes, even if the change is a hardware change. For example, you've replaced a line card in an 8400 switch. If it is a new software that you uploaded outside of NetEdit, and etc. So any change that you have made on your devices will be found and documented by NetEdit automatically by creating one of these plans. So you will have, in essence, three types of plans. The two that you generate yourself to make the changes via NetEdit that you need to make, or the system generated changes or plans that document something that happened outside of NetEdit. We'll get back to that, but I wanted to show you that a plan is a critical concept within NetEdit. Firmware repository, I told you that you can upgrade code on your devices from NetEdit, and this is where you would import the firmware into the NetEdit repository. So the code will be stored inside the NetEdit server. Users, here's where you will create your users. By default, as we saw, there's this user called admin, and by the way, this is the same user that I've used to log in because I just installed this server. So this is the only user, and it's the first time that it logged in. Logs, you will see as you use NetEdit that there's a lot of information stored for troubleshooting and for auditing purposes. This is the main log repository. You'll find everything here, but you will see that you have context logs in other places, and I'll show you those as we go through the different tutorials. Diagnostics. Sometimes when you want to execute a certain action, something fails. For example, suppose that you are importing a device into NetEdit. You have deployed a new device in your network, and you want to import it into NetEdit to start managing it. And for some reason, that importation process fails. Let's say that, for example, you forgot to enable the REST API on that device, or that the IP address that you have declared in the importation process is unreachable, etc. So you will find here these temporary messages on the last thing that failed, and instead of having to go to the logs, they are here. So you don't have to go through the logs and try to find that information. They're put here on purpose so they're easy to find. The next and final option on our left-hand menu is settings, and you will see that we have many settings here, some very simple, some more complicated. Let me give you a quick tour of this page in particular. The default sub-menu is validation, and you see that you have conformance and change validation. I will not cover these two options here, but as you may remember, we talked about conformance validation when we were looking at the tiles in the overview page. So appearance, here's where you may change the theme of your NetEdit interface. For example, the default is called dark, but let's see what happens if I select the light appearance. You see your theme changed, and it's up to you to select which one you would like. For example, some people like this one, etc. So I'll go back to the default just for the video to be consistent. So that's where you change your colors, etc. Editor, when you make configuration changes, you will see that you have an editor for those configurations that we internally call the multi-editor. And multi because you will see that you're editing the configuration of many devices at once. But if you want to tailor that editor a little bit, you have here some options. I will not go through these options because this is something that you can navigate yourself, and you can use the editor and play with this. That will give you a better idea of what you want and what you prefer. So this is an important thing, but until you get used to the editor interface, I would say that it doesn't make sense to start changing anything here. Deployment, this is an important topic. I will cover this when we get to plan deployments, but let me just say here that if you enable this option, what you're doing is you are telling NetEdit to use the checkpoint auto command when it deploys new configurations on the devices. So this is an additional protection measure, and because I like it so much, I will turn it on immediately. And if you remember the checkpoint auto command, you will remember that the default time for the automatic rollback feature on the devices is, so the default time for that is 5 minutes, but you can extend it all the way to 60 minutes. If you don't remember this is the mechanism you have on the devices that Aruba aos-cx offers. So if you lose connectivity to your device because of the configuration changes you're making, you know that within the time that you have configured here, they will roll back because you could not confirm the changes. So if you cannot confirm your changes, Aruba aos-cx will assume that you are disconnected from the device and will roll back the changes to allow you to get back in. So I keep this on because I usually like to have it that way. And this is the first thing I always come in and enable. Attributes, we'll talk more about attributes when we import the devices, but you will see that you have two types of attributes, device attributes and plan attributes. Let me talk a little bit about plan attributes because we've already spent some time talking about plans. Here you see that you have three types of attributes, and also you see that you have the plus sign here on the right, so you could add more of these attributes. I will not add more and show you how that's done, but let's say that the first three ones that were created by system, which means that they are default attributes and cannot be deleted, So if I select this one, well, yeah, actually I can. So these three will allow you to document your plan properly. So for example, you could add who approved the plan, the state of the plan. If you, in your organization, you implement a change ID system, here you would put your change ID. I'll show you more of this when we get to the plans. One important thing here is that the plans today are manually used, in the sense that suppose that you create a plan and you put the state in progress, and then it's a configuration plan. You make the configuration changes, you deploy the plan, and you commit the plan. You would think that that would change the state of the plan, but today it does not. That part is being developed and we'll have that feature in the future, but today the state of the plan is something that you have to change manually. So once you deploy a plan, you should go back to that plan and change the state. That's pretty simple because it's all in the same page. When you are deploying a plan, you have a particular dashboard for that, and that's where you can change these attributes as you work on the plan. So it's not that you have to look for that option, it's right there, but you have to do it manually. So that's all in terms of navigating the NetEdit environment. I will minimize again the left-hand menu, and let's go back to where we were when we logged in for the first time. So this ends our tutorial, and I'll get back with other tutorials on how to create and manage your users, on how to import your devices, how to make the configuration changes, manage device attributes, etc. So thank you.